Johnny got a toy golf set when he was 3, and from that day on, he was hooked. All he wanted to do was golf, golf, golf. He'd be on the links before school, after school. All he ever wanted was to go pro. And then, one day, when he was holding his grandson and thinking about his 12 handicap, Johnny realized it just might not happen for him. But you know what did happen for him? He switched to Geico and saved a bunch of money on car insurance. So that was good, and so was hanging out with his grandson.
Football represents something we are.
Football is like life. You gotta push.
Fantasy football is about proving that you are better than your friends.
Hold up.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Faceoff,
I'm gonna do what's best for the team.
where fantasy meets reality.
Pure fantasy football nirvana.
And now your hosts,
Let the games begin.
Anthony Cervino and Michael Hauff.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the FF Faceoff. It's a podcast, of course, where fantasy meets reality, and we are proudly brought to you by the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best in the world.
My name is Michael Hauff. You can follow me on Twitter at the FF Realist. My partner in crime is Anthony Cervino. He can be followed the Real NFL Guru. Anthony, how you doing on this Tuesday almost evening?
Mike, I'm doing great, but our Periscope link did not tweet out correctly, so I'm going to do that right now.
All right. Well, let's get that out there. All right. So there you go. Just so you guys are aware, we do have, if you do want to call in, we do have the live call in. We mentioned that on the last show. So if you want to call in, if you want to talk about anything with fantasy football, anything with NFL, anything going on today, if you have a question for us, of course, because that's why we're here, give us a call. That's 845-535-9962, and we will answer your questions on air. Keep it funny, keep it classy. We'll help you out the best we can. On today's show, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of news. We're going to be covering just about everything, talking about it from an NFL perspective, fantasy perspective, and everything in between. But really quick, before we go any further, Anthony, let's pay the bills, as they say, and let's get a little public service announcement from his lordship.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
All right, guys, you know the drill. If you like today's episode and subscribe to the channel, please leave us a comment saying that you have subscribed. And once you're done, we will reply back to as many as we can to show our appreciation to you. And as I always like to remind you, if you want to help support the show, any engagements or interactions that you can give us, whether you subscribe and hit the alert icon so you can be notified anytime that we are live or upload, whether you like the show, tell all of your family, friends, coworkers, everybody you know about the FF Faceoff to help spread the word and help us grow. If you're an Apple Podcast listener, please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show. We appreciate it in advance. And also, if you ever want to jump to a certain segment or talking point, just go to our description, check out the timestamps. And if you are using a YouTube desktop device, click the link. But if you're using any other type of podcast player or video player, the links for the timestamps do not work. That is a YouTube problem, not an us problem. So please take it up with them. But it doesn't mean those timestamps are useless. All you have to do is open up your podcast or your video player and drag the bar to the time you want to go to, and everybody wins.
All right. There you go. Good times. All right. So with all that being said, really quick, also, let's get into actually a trending topic of the day. Now, we haven't done trending topics very much lately. They used to be a staple of our show. Perhaps we'll bring them back going forward. But for now, this is more of a get it off our chest than it is a trending topic, but we'll use it as an excuse. ESPN had a very bold call the other day, Antonio Brown is going to be a bounce-back player in 2019.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So, yeah. Anthony, bounce back player. I'm not sure if you've read the back of Antonio Brown's football card, but he's pretty darn good. So let me ask you, I know you're not employed by ESPN, but where do you think Antonio Brown is bouncing back from exactly?
The hot air balloon that he rode the training camp on. I don't know what the hell ESPN is talking about. He was one of the more productive wide receivers in fantasy football last year. So I have no idea where that came from. You know what I said on Twitter. That has to be a Stephen A. Smith special.
Yeah. I mean, it's so lazy that it's almost adorable. He had 15 touchdowns last year. Do you want to know what is special about that number, Anthony? It's more touchdowns than he's ever had. More touchdowns than he's ever had in a season. So not only is he bouncing back, he's bouncing back from a season in which he had a career high 15 touchdowns. This is fascinating.
Listen.
104 receptions, 1,297 yards. Hell, I can't wait to see where these numbers go. If he's a bounce back player, he needs to move up into the first round. He needs to be your first round pick, right?
ESPN needs to quit the NFL football business.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they have some good people in the football business. There's some good people in there. But then you get stuff like this. Like, what the hell?
They should stick to the spelling bee.
I guess. Sure, fine. I mean, they'll probably find a way to overdo that as well. You know, they'll say the winner's going to bounce back next year. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it. We just wanted to get that off our chest. It's just like, next they're going to tell me that Christian McCaffrey's going to bounce back from his 100-plus targets last year. So just ESPN continuing their fine work.
You really can't bounce back from targets.
Right? I mean, ESPN could find a way to, try and articulate that. So either way, maybe ESPN gets lost in the shuffle because they're pulling in so much revenue. They don't have time to think about common sense bounce back takes or bold takes or what have you. But so there's that. If you enjoy that sort of thing, head to ESPN.com today and check out many of their other bold calls. I'm sure they have. But Anthony, that's enough out of me being a wise ass. Really quick, actually, before we get into the news, play draft. I got it here on my koozie today, on my beer, my beverage. So damn good that I'm probably going to have more than one. Yes, it's a Coors Light. Don't judge me. It is what it is. I'm a regular whiskey drinker. Anthony, what are you drinking today?
I have a coffee, and I have a Fierce Grape Gatorade.
I do love me some Fierce Grape.
And I do have a water here somewhere. There it is. 3. I always like to have 3 drinks at my disposal at all times.
So you get 3 drinks, and you can't make one of them an alcoholic beverage?
Well, alcohol doesn't always agree with me, Mike.
It doesn't. It's only for an hour, man. Maybe we can get some Tito's and put that in the Fierce in the Fierce Grape.
Yeah. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. Fireball.
Maybe one day. We've been doing this podcast for almost 3 years. You tell me maybe one day.
Maybe on our 1 year or 3-year anniversary, I'll drink with you on the show.
Okay. All right. Save the date, folks. Save the date. That'll be riveting. YouTube television. Call it television. You put it on television. All right. News here. Let's get into it. Dallas Cowboys. Really quick, Anthony. The big quote here. You don't have to have a rushing champion to win a Super Bowl. That being from Jerry Jones. They did sign Alfred Morris. I'm sure Ezekiel Elliott is shaking in his flip-flops as he is in Mexico awaiting to find out from his representation that a contract is done. Anthony, I'll open the floor to you. You're the Cowboys guy. Give me what you think as a Cowboys fan and what you think just in general, especially about Jerry Jones' comments.
Well, this situation with Jerry Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, right? I'm married. You're married. Everybody's in relationships. I like to talk about, life and relationships and football. Doesn't it feel like me, I'm a jealous person. And when I get jealous, I obviously want to make my wife jealous, right? And this is the type of situation, right? Where it's almost like Jerry Jones wants to make Ezekiel Elliott jealous, right? He starts saying, we don't need you. And then he goes and signs Alfred Morris would be the equivalent of me calling one of my ex-girlfriends Skaggs up to make my wife jealous, and that's what it seems like it is.
I hope none of those ex-girlfriends are watching this program.
I don't care.
Okay.
Jerry Jones bringing in Alfred Morris, telling Ezekiel Elliott we don't need him, is like trying to piss off your wife or your girlfriend, and meanwhile, the wife, a.k.a. Ezekiel Elliott, is sitting in Cabo with a cocktail. Does not care.
All right.
Does not care. Alfred Morris cannot replace Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
And I understand the narrative that you don't need a bell cow back. You don't need running backs anymore in
no,
professional
it is a changing
football.
NFL world. Absolutely.
But Ezekiel Elliott, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, he is not your everyday running back. He's never missed a game in the NFL. I don't even know if he's missed one in his life.
Unless he's suspended, but sure.
Okay, but for injury, he's durable. Yeah. He's a workhorse. He's a closer. When he does get the ball on the goal line, because he didn't get it a ton last year, he can punch it in. He's developing into a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, you could say he's almost like Adrian Peterson type of genetics.
All right. Well, let's wait and see how long he plays before we start talking about that.
I'm just saying, is there another back in the NFL that you can say that about? Or is Ezekiel Elliott it?
Well, you can't say about Todd Gurley's knees, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, but all right, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I just like to anybody...
Dallas Cowboys, who have legitimate Super Bowl aspirations ahead, are a 500 football team without Ezekiel Elliott. With Ezekiel Elliott, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and that was a comment I had made on Twitter in response to that Jerry Jones quote. And, you know, sure, it's true that some teams do not need a rushing champion in order to win a Super Bowl. I mean, take the New England Patriots, for example. The 2019 Dallas Cowboys are a much different story than those other teams that Jerry Jones is referring to. They need Ezekiel Elliott, which, Anthony, you basically said so as much. I want you to pull up the poll that you had posted. I'm curious for those responses. I'll talk while you pull it up. The one about Melvin Gordon and Ezekiel Elliott. Okay. If you can get those numbers up, just because I'm curious, we could talk about them on air. Anthony had made a poll, which I thought was a darn good one, given what's going on. It was something to the effect of who's going to miss more time or who's going to be their opening day. I still maintain both of these running backs will be there at the start of the season, especially Ezekiel Elliott. I just know that it's going to get done. I'm not that worried about it, honestly. And if anybody's really that worried about Alfred Morris, I mean, Anthony, you hear the Dallas Cowboys sign Alfred Morris. Is Ezekiel Elliott still not going 101? Like, if you're drafting today, are you no longer taking Zeke with the 101?
Absolutely not. I am taking him with the 101.
Right, you are taking him.
And you know, maybe Melvin Gordon has a little bit more leverage, and he doesn't have much.
Right.
But Ezekiel Elliott has 2 years left on his deal. Yeah. Plus, the Cowboys can franchise tag him for another 2 years on top of that.
Yeah, this is really just Zeke sending a message, which is fine by me. You know?
I think people need to realize that when it comes to missing game checks, especially for players on their rookie deal,
right?
You know, maybe one, maybe two. Are you really gonna, miss however much your full season contract is? It's not going to happen.
Unless you've got some advertisements that are really going to help you stay afloat. You're right. I hear you.
And the poll, who has a better shot of holding out and missing actual regular season games? Melvin Gordon dominating 68%, Ezekiel Elliott 22%, neither, which is how I feel, at 10%.
Yeah, I'm in the neither category, but if I didn't go neither, I would go with Melvin Gordon. I really don't think Zeke is going to miss any regular season time. Maybe he'll miss some preseason time, but even then, that's not going to affect a guy like Zeke. Zeke's just going to be able to get in there. So there's that for your Dallas Cowboys drama. We can move on now to the Cleveland Browns. NFL insider Jason La Canfora doesn't believe that Duke Johnson will be traded until the midseason trade deadline. Now, Anthony, I understand that there's some more relevant things to talk about. AJ Green, for example, who we'll get to in a moment. But Anthony, who else reported that? About 4 months ago?
I think I've been saying that.
Yeah.
Ever since, probably I can go back into a show from when Kareem Hunt signed with the Cleveland Browns and said Duke Johnson will be traded by the trade deadline. And this is what, last season when that happened. I've been said that's what I've been saying for a very long time. So that's not really news if you listen to the show.
Right. You should just shrug and be like, well, we already heard about that from the FF Faceoff. But
right.
So there you go. But yeah. We'll see where he goes. Now, I'll ask this before we move on.
But Jason Lockenfora is the one who's going to look like a genius.
Yeah, well, he needs to do a lot more to continue to look like a genius or to get to that point again where he is a genius. But Anthony, I should stop insulting people at some point on the show. But let's ask a fantasy football question.
You're a small, petty man.
You know, some people think it's crazy to draft a Kareem Hunt in like a redraft league because he's going to be suspended for the whole year. And in most situations, redraft, that's true. Would you be interested in drafting Duke Johnson with the idea that he could land in a nice spot? I mean, that's the hope, obviously. Everybody, when we hear Duke Johnson trade, a lot of us just gravitate towards the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Are you willing to put some draft stock into Duke Johnson, or are you just going to let that fly by?
I am, and I have.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I am, and I have.
You have. When recently have you drafted him? Have you drafted him recently? Are we talking best ball or?
I have shares of Duke Johnson a little bit in each format, but I haven't actually done a draft probably since Scott Fishbowl.
Okay. All right.
But I've done a lot of drafts this offseason. I'm just in a little bit of a drought.
All right. Well, listen, really quick then, before we go any further, how about we get out of that drought tonight? And I'll start a draft on Play Draft. We could start a best ball draft. And Anthony, do we still have that promo code?
Yeah, absolutely. Play Draft promo code is the FF Faceoff, FFACEOFF.
All right.
And you will get, if you're a new user and you sign up to Play Draft using the code, our code, you'll get a free entry to try out any one of Play Draft's outstanding games.
Yeah, there's a lot more to do than just best ball, but if you haven't done best ball before, it's awesome. You basically draft a team and leave it. It's like planting a flower without having to water it. And then you go back at the end of the season, it takes your best players from each week, calculates the score, and the team at the end with the most points scored is your winner. So you don't have to worry about bye weeks. You don't have to worry about finding injury replacements. You just draft your team and let it grow. So head to Play Draft, and we're going to start draft tonight. And I'll put that link out on my Twitter handle at the FF Realist, and we'll get it out there to everybody. And just for argument's sake, Anthony, in half-point formats, Duke Johnson's going with the 7th pick in the 14th round. So not too harsh of an investment if you're into that sort of thing.
That's unbelievable to me.
Is it? I mean,
it is. 14th round. Why not? Nick Chubb has not shown he can catch the football. Right. What if Nick Chubb gets injured?
I understand
Johnson's
all that
going to have
stuff.
more value than what people believe.
I know. I'm speaking to fan perception. A lot of people are hot and bothered about when Kareem Hunt comes back. And some people think that Chubb is going to be fine. Or some people just think that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more. So it's Duke Johnson is sliding under that radar. And he's just moving right along. So, and I also think since a lot of folks are waiting for him to be traded. And when they hear he's not traded, they figure he'll be in like a purgatory. So that's why I think his ADP has fallen. But that's fine with me. I'll grab him. I'll be interested in grabbing him in the 14th round, especially in half-point or full-point formats. Anthony, let's finally move it on. We'll go from the Browns. We'll go to another AFC North team, that being the Cincinnati Bengals. And listen, AJ Green, the news broke over the weekend, I believe, or was that yesterday? I forget. All my days are confused. But AJ Green ended up being injured during practice, ended up being an ankle injury. He did have his surgery today. Initially, they had said he was going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Now it looks like he's definitely going to be missing some season time. Correct, Anthony?
Yes. According to the news from today, Jeff Hobson on Twitter, Bengals beat writer, is reporting from Zach Taylor, A.J. Green will, in fact, miss regular season games. Apparently, during the procedure, they found more damage that's going to extend how long A.J. Green will be out. A.J. Green, and before we get into the rest of the outlook and how this affects the Cincinnati Bengals,
right?
I'm pretty good with projecting roster movement.
Okay. Hey, now.
A.J. Green is in a contract year. If the Bengals are smart, and I'm one who thought the Bengals would be a surprise team in the AFC North, because a lot of turnover on the Ravens defense, a lot of turnover on the Pittsburgh Steelers. People are overhyping the Browns, but really they're a young team, still haven't gelled. Head coach that was never really a head coach before. It's an open division. But the chances now for the Bengals without their first-round offensive lineman, we don't know how long A.J. Green's going to be out. We have an injury with John Ross. That's dwindling. 9-7 wins the AFC North this year, by the way, and I can't wait until we get into our NFL prediction show.
Okay, let's do it.
But if the Bengals are just get off to a sluggish start, A.J. Green's why wouldn't you look at last year's trade deadline? Golden Tate, Demaryius Thomas, Amari Cooper. Get what you can from A.J. Green, deal him, and wash your hands of it. I think A.J. Green could be a big-time wide receiver, especially if somebody goes down around the league who gets dealt by the trade deadline.
Okay. Sounds good to me. All right, we'll see. It's a shame, though, because kind of a player you root for. You were hoping he would bounce back. Then there's Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, of course, fresh off of his contract extension as well. He had gone from on July 15th, he was the 7th pick in the 6th round. He has gone up to the 2nd pick in the 6th round. So he's almost venturing into the 5th round. Anthony, what is your thoughts here now on Tyler Boyd? Because, I get it. A lot of people get excited about Tyler Boyd's draft stock now because A.J. Green's down. Tyler Boyd is next man up. It was widely discussed amongst fantasy circles that really Tyler Boyd did even better when A.J. Green was there, perhaps not dealing with the team's best coverage.
Well, obviously.
So, of course. So I'm saying, are you even more jacked up for Tyler Boyd? Are you just the same? Or are you maybe a little bit trepidatious now?
Cautiously optimistic about Tyler Boyd. Because we really don't know what he is. I know the production regressed a little bit without A.J. Green, but he also didn't have Andy Dalton for a couple of games at the end of the year either.
Right.
A lot of factors, and then you bring in Zach Taylor, young offensive-minded head coach, who can light this offense up a little bit. So there's a lot of factors. But opportunity-wise, Tyler Boyd's going to have every opportunity in the world to break out. And so will John Ross, who was pretty good in the red zone and end zone last year, just not really anywhere else. If he can get on track, John Ross, a top 10 pick a few years ago. And what else do I have in Cincinnati? Icky Woods. Bring back Icky.
Yeah. Well, John Ross has also been sidelined with a hamstring injury, so he can't get out of his own way. So there's that as well. Just keep that in mind. But, all right, so things aren't looking so hot in Cincinnati currently. We'll monitor how it develops. Anthony, let's get into a little bit Philadelphia Eagles news here. That would be Jordan Howard. Now, it was reported a couple days ago or yesterday, Jordan Howard was dominating first-team carries at training camp. Now we hear today the Miles Sanders truthers can now come out and play. Miles Sanders is now at practice, and it was reported on Tuesday from Zach Rosenblatt that he seems to clearly, which sounds weird to me, he seems to clearly have the most talent in that running back group, and is certainly the shiftiest. Then you had the Athletics' Sheil Capita. She went on further. if ball security and pro pass
That's
are
a guy.
non-issues.
Shield Kapadia is a man.
Well, boy, girl, whatever. It's all the same nowadays, right? Who keeps
What a
scoring?
predicament.
Anyway, it said if not for pass protection and non-issues, seems like a matter of when, not if, Sanders is
This
the
is
lead
probably
back.
our most politically incorrect show.
Some people like to be neutral. I don't know. Whatever they are. Boy, girl, does it even matter, Anthony? There you go. I'll play devil's advocate.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't matter?
No.
There you go. Almost backed you into a corner. Anyway.
That's why I said no, it doesn't.
All jokes aside. So saying that if the ball security and pass protection are non-issues, which we've heard a little bit that pass protection could be an issue, if it's not, it seems like Sanders is the lead back. Now, I'll still maintain that I still think that Sanders is going to, if anything, he'll break late. I don't think he's going to be your wire-to-wire lead back. I just think Jordan Howard's that talented to at least prolong the inevitable in which Miles Sanders eventually becomes the guy in Philadelphia. I think Jordan Howard's that good to prolong that. So, but Anthony, this is some for Miles Sanders supporters. After dealing with all the hamstring issues during minicamp, now to get to this point, it's got to be encouraging, no?
It is, but just like the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Miles Sanders, they traded for and gave up assets for Jordan Howard. These are two running backs that this team wanted. They're very different backs. Maybe we see almost a split, almost like what Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard had in Chicago. But Jordan Howard is going to dominate early down carries, just like he is right now in camp.
Yeah. All right. Well, so there. But I still think it's encouraging. What's that?
He had 9 goal line carries last year, 13 most in the NFL, 9 total touchdowns, 14th most in the NFL, and the 12th most red zone touches with 37. And now he's going to be running behind a better offensive line.
Right. Just let's not forget, while we should be encouraged and excited by the Miles Sanders news, let's not forget that Jordan Howard is not a corpse. He is still a fully functioning human being and a darn good running back at that. So, but it is something to continue to closely monitor. After that, Eagles beat writer Mike K, who I'm pretty sure is a boy, so I won't mix that one up. He's reporting that the Carson Wentz to Deshaun Jackson rapport has been automatic early on in training camp. So, Anthony, for folks who were expecting Deshaun Jackson to go right back to his old big playmaking ways in Philadelphia, it may be becoming very much a reality. We don't talk a lot about Deshaun Jackson on this show, but he is a guy who's garnering, despite his age, he's garnering a lot of excitement. Folks are pretty intrigued. Where are you at with Deshaun Jackson?
At one time, you could have gotten Deshaun Jackson with a double-digit round ADP.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I'm pulling it up, well, in PPR, it looks like, where am I here?
Why do you go to PPR all the time?
Okay, you want
I got
half
a bone
point?
to pick with you. Yeah, I want half point. I've been telling you for weeks I want half point. Christ
His
sakes.
ADP is still in double-digit rounds, but in PPR, he has an 11th round ADP, which is a little bit higher than what it was.
Well, PPR is a little rough for a guy like Deshaun Jackson. I love him in best ball formats.
But you're going to see Deshaun Jackson start going in the single digits. Maybe not in the 8th, but late 9th, early 10th round ADP. And then you have Alshon Jeffrey with, a 6th, 7th round ADP. It's a lot closer than what it was.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm going to take a chance on an Eagles wide receiver, and I'm not an Alshon Jeffrey guy, it's probably going to be Deshaun Jackson. But no matter how you slice it, if Carson Wentz goes down, so will the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, because they don't have the safety net known as Nick Foles anymore. Yeah, no, I agree. And I like how you have to make sure you get that in there. But All right, we'll see. I do think that, you're right, though. Deshaun Jackson is kind of bridging that gap to Alshon Jeffrey as far as ADP is concerned, and that's only going to get even more closer with news like this. So, and again, I'll still maintain a best ball format, so I'm curious to see where he goes. And when we do that draft tonight, we'll do a slow draft, but we'll find out.
All right, so PPR, 11th round, half-point PPR, 10th round, and now let's go to non-PPR just for the hell of it.
Standard, sure. Let's check it out. Which really, half point is the new
10th
standard,
round.
but 10th round. Okay.
That will creep up. The more positive reports, that will creep up.
At what point would that creeping up? And let's go with half point here, because PPR I feel like is too far out of a guy like Deshaun Jackson's range. I mean, you're aiming for more targets and receptions. Half point formats. At what point, if his ADP is climbing too much, are you cutting bait?
At what point? Well,
all right, so what? He's 10th round now in half point, you said?
I understand the context of the question. I was just repeating it while I think.
While you think, okay. All right.
Look at the other 10th round receivers: Emmanuel Sanders, DK Metcalf, going a few picks before, Moncrief, Anthony Miller. Shoot. I hope I don't have to draft a receiver in the 11th round, 10th, 11th round.
All right.
But, yeah, it would probably be Deshaun Jackson if DK wasn't on the board. But, look at those 10th round receivers. A lot of my guys, Curtis Samuel, D.D. Westbrook, I will take both of them. DK Metcalf. That's tough. I like Deshaun Jackson, but I think the opportunity for some of these guys, like a D.D. Westbrook, who reportedly made an amazing play with Nick Foles at our training camp today.
Yep.
Curtis Samuel, absolutely love him. DK Metcalf, should be some opportunity there.
Yeah, okay. Also worth mentioning, Norv Turner did comment that Curtis Samuel is getting much better at his route running, so it's encouraging if nothing else. Anthony, let's head over to my guys, the San Francisco 49ers. Just something really quick for those, because, I mean, the backfield is the biggest topic of discussion among fantasy football fans and the 49ers. Jerick McKinnon could come, despite what you might hear on Twitter, Jerick McKinnon could come off of the PUP this week. As you guys know, I'm a big-time 49er fan, so I'm watching every single post-practice, press conference or speaking to the media that Kyle Shanahan does or John Lynch, and even from mannerisms, he's coming back soon, Jerick McKinnon. This isn't something that's going to be a very long thing, him being on the PUP right now. So he'll be back soon at some point by the end of this week or maybe early next week, I would expect. So for folks really wanting to see, and Kyle Shanahan has said that this is a competition for the number one running back, that being Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon. So we're really going to find out, especially once Jerick McKinnon gets out there, what's going to happen. One other thing, Anthony, then I'll let you comment on all things 49ers if you care to. Eric Crocker on Twitter, at Eric_Crocker. He said could be. You have to ask him. Adam, find out. Slide to his DMs. He expects Trent Taylor to lead the team in targets as he mans the slot position, at least for the early part of the season. Anthony, that is now the second person. We had Matt Mayoko last week. Now we have Eric Crocker, possibly Brady Crocker's son. We're not sure yet. Listen, this is two people now in a matter of a week. And I want to bring this up, not because, no, I'm not telling you to go draft Trent Taylor with a very early draft pick. And that's not what I'm doing here. PPR, I definitely think you should consider him at some point. I'm saying this because I said something on a previous show last week when we talked about Dante Pettis. And I had suggested that targets are going to be spread out a bit. So some of these pass catches with the 49ers, it's going to get a little frustrating sometimes for fantasy football fans, especially for folks that are all hopped up on Dante Pettis. So I just want to bring that to light, that they're going to spread the ball around. Anthony, anything to say on this with the 49ers?
Nothing that I don't expect.
Right.
It is good to see Jerick McKinnon getting back on the field. It is going to complicate things in the backfield, but when it's all said and done, I do expect Tevin Coleman to be the lead back, followed by McKinnon and then Breida. And as far as the wide receiver position goes, Trent Taylor has a lot of injury issues. You have Deebo Samuel. You have Dante Pettis. I'm going to say it again. Watch out for Jordan Matthews, Mike.
Oh, what a world! What a world!
Watch out for Jordan Matthews.
I said to you, Anthony, prior to the show, I had to explain to him what this was, but we should play a drinking game where every time something is said, we both have to make a drink, or both have to have a drink. Now, Anthony, you have 3 beverages, none of which is an alcoholic beverage, but you may need to get one, because I think for every time you mention Jordan Matthews, we need to drink. I know I especially need to drink when you mention his name. So.
Oh, I keep forgetting about Goodwin, too.
Oh, yeah, Goodwin. Yeah, absolutely. Just keep Jordan Matthews' name out of your mouth. I still maintain, and we have a bet on this show, that Jordan Matthews will not make the 53-man roster. But we'll see. But, yeah, there's a point being there's a lot of talent there in San Francisco. None of it uber talented, but enough that I think it's going to spread targets out. And it's going to make things a little bit tricky, a little bit hairy for fantasy football purposes.
And before we move on, Mike,
yeah.
I do want to mention, if anybody is watching live and you want to call the show and you want to ask a fantasy football question, if you have a take you want to get out there, you want to debate one of our takes,
sure.
This is brand new. This is the first time we're really advertising it, and I know it's going to take a while to get going. But call the show, 845-535-9962.
Yeah, we will answer, especially because Anthony's manning it. So Anthony's going to be so excited. He's going to answer immediately. So, all right, Minnesota Vikings, we'll get to them now. Dalvin Cook has told the press that he is ready to carry the ball as many times as they want to hand it to him. Anthony, I mean, this is more just a headline that, encouraging that we have a running back that wants the ball. What do we expect here out of Dalvin Cook? Currently, Dalvin Cook is going, where are we with Dalvin Cook in half-point formats? He is going, give me 1 second, I apologize. Where is Mr. Dalvin Cook's 5th pick of the 2nd round right now, going around the likes of Melvin Gordon, who's currently holding out. Damian Williams is just behind him, and then Nick Chubb. Anthony, what's your level of excitement here for Dalvin Cook headed into this year? We know, well, we presume, seeing as that Mike Zimmer let go the offensive coordinator, John DeFilippo, because he wanted to run the ball more. So we'd expect Dalvin Cook's numbers to get a little better, especially coming off of, this will be his first full season back from the injury. I think that kind of slowed him down at the beginning of last year. What do we think about Dalvin Cook? Is the middle of the 5th round a good draft price? Middle of the 2nd round?
It is, because Dalvin Cook has, a ton of upside. On a team that wants to run the ball, a team, the Minnesota Vikings, who address their offensive line.
Right.
But the narrative with Dalvin Cook is always going to be, can he stay healthy? Because dating back to college where he had shoulder issues, he's been pretty banged up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has been.
These 2nd round, a lot of risk with these early 2nd round backs, whether you're talking about Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, whose ADP plummeted.
Mm-hmm.
He's one player. If you don't believe he's holding out and you see his ADP in the 2nd round, imagine peeling off like a David Johnson or an Alvin Kamara and coming back and get Melvin Gordon. Meanwhile, they were going back-to-back 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then you have Gurley.
It's one hell of a way to start your roster. I agree. All right. So, but the other way, I mean, if you're looking at him in the 2nd round, or you're going for him then?
Cook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been a Dalvin Cook guy in the past, no?
Never. I remember I was banging the drum for Latavius Murray last year.
Yeah, you were Latavius Murray. Never mind. Got the flip.
If I'm taking a 2nd round running back, it's Damian Williams.
Yeah, okay. If he's gone, then I'll look the way Dalvin. But all right, I get it. There are some question marks in the 2nd round there with your running backs. Anthony, really quick before we move on, just because I like to bust your balls. Do you have a comment on Adam Thielen being ranked 33rd in the NFL's top 100 and with Stephon Diggs being ranked 73rd? I'll wait while you comment.
No, I don't.
No. Okay.
I mean, what do you want me to comment? It's a new season.
Yeah.
And once Diggs finally outproduces Adam Thielen because he stays healthy for full 16, then we'll have this conversation. I mean, where was Adam Thielen the second half of last season, Mike?
Didn't matter. He did so much work in the first half. He still passed.
Okay, but where was he in the second half? Where was he in the second half? Where was he in the second half?
Okay, he still finished better than Stephon Diggs. So what? What are we getting at?
By a hair on his balls.
Still a hair on the ball ahead of him.
Adam Thielen, wide receiver 7. Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 10. Separated by what? 307. 26. Wow. Okay. A little bit bigger gap than I thought it was in points.
Okay.
But still, Adam Thielen, where was he in the second half?
Again, he passed Stephon Diggs by so much, he figured, you know what, let me pump the brakes a little bit here. Anyway, just wanted to get your comment on Adam Thielen being better than Stephon Diggs. But with that being said, we can move on. Baltimore Ravens beat writer Jeff Zerbick, he is reporting that Mark Andrews, the tight end for the Ravens, has been the Ravens' most dangerous and productive offensive player at training camp. Anthony.
Adam Thielen, last 5 games when it matters. He finished wide receiver 24, 27, 76, 30, and 61. So if you were in the fantasy football playoffs with Adam Thielen, guess you didn't do that well.
Where'd they finish on the year? Do you have that in front of you? Where Thielen and Diggs finished at the end of the year?
We just discussed that.
Do you have that in front of you though, or
I did. I do. Okay. I just said it.
Okay. All right. That should be a fun talk all year long, each and every week. Anthony, though, back to another team that wears purple, that being the Baltimore Ravens. They're saying that Mark Andrews is the most dangerous and productive offensive player at training camp. That's some high praise. I get it. The Baltimore Ravens aren't exactly the greatest show on turf, but still. So excitement is booming here for Mark Andrews. Are you getting hot and bothered as well?
I am. I'm a Mark Andrews guy.
Okay.
I liked what he did last year, and I even went back and did a little bit of digging on Mark Andrews in college, an old college report. He was once compared to Travis Kelce in one of the reports I read. That's the type of talent you're dealing with Mark Andrews. You have a quarterback, Lamar Jackson. You're getting reports. Put on 10 pounds. That's great if you're a running back, not a quarterback. I'd like to see a little bit more of improvement in his throwing motion than packing on 10 pounds.
Right.
But Mark Andrews is going to be the top receiving option in Baltimore. Why? He's a tight end. He works the middle of the field. He makes big plays, yards after the catch. I like Mark Andrews a lot, and I'm buying into him. You know, I'm a guy who's been punting the tight end position and grabbing a player like a Mark Andrews and a player like Jimmy Graham and streaming a matchup.
The fact that, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm scrolling through some of this tight end ADP here. The fact that I have to go through TJ Hawkinson in the 11th round before I can get to Mark Andrews or Austin Hooper for that matter. I mean, Hawkinson should not be.
What the hell is wrong with Austin Hooper?
I don't know. I said that last podcast we discussed him. I said it's criminal the fact that he's going with the 9th pick in the 12th round. Then we have Hawkinson going in the back of the 11th. I get it. It's not a world's reach, but still far enough for me. Mark Andrews is going 6th pick of the 13th round. So we're talking about potentially the most productive and dangerous player so far in training camp for the Baltimore Ravens being in the 13th round, and Hawkinson, in which we haven't heard a peep about, late in the 11th. So don't be that guy. Don't. I'll tell you right now, I will get more production out of Mark Andrews than Hawkinson this year. Slam dunk. And this is a position, by the way. If you're like Anthony Cervino and if you want to punt the tight end, there's reason to do it. I mean, there's a lot of great tight ends. Even a guy like Delaney Walker. He's late. He's late in the 11th round as well. So there's definitely some value to be had. But yeah, there's definitely reason to be excited about Mark Andrews here in this Ravens offense. Anything else to say on that one, Anthony? Or
well, we have a little bit more Ravens news, and it's not big. A player that has been talked up a lot this offseason, who's been around for a while, Chris Moore. Reports from beat writer Jeff Zerbiak saying he struggled early in camp. No surprise. Where the hell was Chris Moore for the first 3 years, however long he's been with the team? Then you have the rookie Hollywood Brown. Looks like he's good to go. Nobody's talking about Willie Snead, who was the only Ravens pass catcher to, at wide receiver, to have a rapport with Lamar Jackson. And everybody's writing him off.
Well, are you drafting Willie? Are you drafting any Ravens wide receiver?
Why not Willie Snead? You talk about these late round PPR receivers, right?
I don't think
you bring up Trent Taylor. There's Trey Quinn. Why not Willie Snead?
Okay.
Caught 62 passes last year.
Yeah.
On 95 targets.
All right.
I know the rest of the production wasn't there, 651 yards and only one touchdown.
Right.
But for a player you're getting for absolutely free in a PPR league, maybe and especially a deep PPR league, why not?
Okay. Fair point.
He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games with at least 5 receptions. That production's not there, touchdown's not there, but in PPR, why the hell not?
That's a tweet-worthy stat. That's kind of surprising, Anthony. You should get on that. All right.
Maybe I will.
There you go. Well, no, yeah, I'm being serious. That's actually, I was not expecting that number. So, all right, there you go. Maybe on top of this Mark Andrews news, and talk about Chris Moore, maybe folks should focus some attention on Willie Snead late in their drafts. Good call, Anthony. All right, moving on. The Detroit Lions. It's funny. I had said on the last show that we would talk about Kerryon Johnson, and there was that report at some point. The Detroit Free Press was expecting Kerryon Johnson. Well, they were saying he could potentially have 60 receptions. They were saying. So I had said on this podcast that in order for Kerryon Johnson to get those 60 receptions, Theo Riddick wasn't going to be able to be on the roster. And I don't know, maybe the Lions heard me, or maybe they had their minds made up before they listened to me. Probably the latter. But Theo Riddick was cut by the Detroit Lions. So now, I understand there's C.J. Anderson, but this is really, to me, Kerryon Johnson fantasy owners could be pretty excited now, because now you're going to develop the pass catching as well. For what it's worth, Theo Riddick, by the way, looks at latest report was that he was deciding between the Saints and the Broncos. I know the Saints today, Sean Payton announced that Buck Allen was going on the IR. So maybe Theo Riddick winds up there, which I don't think is going to excite many fantasy football enthusiasts. But Anthony, your thoughts here on Theo Riddick, where he may end up, and what it means for Kerryon.
Well, we talked about this on the last show, on our Either Or show.
Right. We compared him to Derrick Henry.
Right. And now you take away Theo Riddick, who was a legitimate threat on pass-catching downs. Something that we know Kerryon Johnson can do. They have C.J. Anderson. Not worried about C.J. Anderson on pass-catching down. Maybe on the goal line. What this is going to do is open up more opportunities for Kerryon Johnson to be on the football field and get touches. Theo Riddick, where's a logical landing spot? We talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need a pass-catching back.
All right, but right now they're saying that it's between the Saints and the Broncos. So unless somebody sneaks in, that's what we're looking at. Do either of those teams get you going?
The Saints, really, right? They placed Buck Allen on, I believe, season-ending IR. So there could be a spot opening up there.
They have
who is
their
the other
pass
team?
catcher. The Broncos, home to your boy Joe Flacco.
They have Devontae Booker as their running back 3. Theo Riddick would be wise to sit back and wait for an injury.
I don't understand why Tampa Bay just... I'm very curious to see what they do with that backfield because they had to have confidence in Peyton Barber and or Ronald Jones enough to... I mean, we've been talking about them since free agency opened up. And nothing.
We talk about a team like the Miami Dolphins punting their season. You think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of punting it a little bit?
I don't think
because
Bruce Arians is.
Jameis Winston's just not it.
No. I say no, and the only reason why I say no so emphatically is just, listen, all we heard about when Bruce Arians took the job in Tampa Bay was how much he loved Jameis Winston, how much they had this connection. All about Jameis Winston.
Well, that's until he had to coach him.
He's got a Jameis Winston poster on his ceiling. I mean, that's his guy. And Bruce Arians, listen, I know this is dating it back a little bit, but if you've ever watched that All or Nothing with the Arizona Cardinals, Bruce Arians' attitude, I love his passion. That guy's not punting anything. He's not punting anything. So, no, I don't think that's the case. I just think that they might have enough confidence in one of these running backs, which I'm very curious to see how that plays out. But we'll cover that more as we move on. Just so you know, FYI, not much to discuss here, but I'll mention it for the sake of mentioning it. Other Saints news, they did release Cameron Meredith. That was a shame. Came off that great year in Chicago. Then he ended up tearing his knee in preseason. Was never quite the same. Never really got back. Wasn't utilized here. A lot of injuries, so sucks. We'll see where he lands, if he lands, and we'll see where it goes. Other news here, Los Angeles Rams, they plan to use the veteran plan to limit Todd Gurley's reps at training camp. I mean, Anthony, this really isn't news, and this isn't even something that we can, brag about and say that we've been reporting it for months. A lot of people kind of had this sentiment that in order for Todd Gurley to work, he's going to have to be used less than he was. Maybe no preseason, clearly. Maybe you shut him down with a couple of weeks to go before the playoffs. Because assuming that the Rams, again, will win the West and go to the playoffs, that's what most people think, except for USA Today, but they should be drug tested. So is this Todd Gurley news here with the veteran plan? Does that sway you in any way, good or bad? I just want to also mention, by the way, if Todd Gurley's not getting full usage or if he's not getting as much as we're accustomed to seeing Todd Gurley get, there's guys like Alvin Kamara that we love, and he never really got a full workload for an entire season, and he worked out just fine for him. I mean, are we overreacting on Todd Gurley too?
Possibly. But if you listen, and guys listening to the show right now, if you go back into the archives and check out the show I did with Dr. Jesse Morris from the Fantasy Doctors,
yes,
we went in pretty in depth on Todd Gurley and a ton of other players and how their injuries will affect things. And he said this arthritis can happen when he's walking. He doesn't necessarily have to be doing a football movement.
Right.
It is something worth monitoring, but his ADP right now was low enough to where it's worth the risk, because I've said this before on the show and on Twitter.
Right.
Ezekiel Elliott had the 6-game suspension in 2017. His ADP dropped right around the middle of the second round, and Zeke finished as the RB 12 or 13, which matches up with the ADP. So you're drafting Todd Gurley factoring 6 games missed or 6 games worth of touches and production gone.
Yeah. And I mean, by the way, you talked about starting off
where
your
it goes
team.
wrong is if he misses a lot of time.
Right. Which I honestly don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to be used a little bit less. I think that's expected. I think that's understandable, but he's not going to fall to face the fancy earth. I mean, I still think if you could, based on what ADPs are now, if you could start off your team with, say, a James Conner and then Todd Gurley, I think you're doing pretty good there. If you start off your team with those two running backs, or if you're more of a Joe Mixon guy in Todd Gurley, or Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley, I think it's a good start. So there's your veteran plan for Todd Gurley, which we all expected. So we'll see how it develops. It's mostly, I think, if anything, there's going to be, if there's any concern, it'll be for folks in the fantasy playoffs to see what they do with Todd Gurley. So that's it. What's that, Anthony?
I agree with that. That's fine.
Yeah. Jamison Crowder, we'll go to the Jets now, just really quick. He did exit Monday's practice with a foot or ankle injury. Anthony, did we have anything further on that with Crowder?
Yeah, he'll be back tomorrow.
He'll be back tomorrow.
So he's good to go.
So if you're a Jamison Crowder guy, there it is. I think people should be more excited about Quincy Enunwa, obviously Robbie Anderson. But take that for what you will. Kansas City Chiefs. Damian Williams, he did not practice on Monday. He had a hamstring injury. Anthony, do we have an update on Damian Williams? Did he practice today?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So there you go. But the bigger news, as far as the Chiefs go, turns out that, obviously, if you were on Twitter, you heard about this. Twitter basically gasped as Tyreek Hill went down during practice today, was carted off the field. Need not worry, folks. Looks like it was just a bruised quad. Not going to be a long-term concern. They said they could keep him out for a couple days, but
can you imagine going through all this offseason with Tyreek Hill? Will he, won't he play? Will he play, won't he play? How many games? And then he gets like a long-term injury and it's out. It would probably be karma.
Well, yes, some would certainly perceive it that way. But turns out that doesn't have to be a reality. So there you go. But so he should be back in a couple of days. Don't worry, folks. And we all know Tyreek Hill plays. He's going to be a fantasy asset, so on and so forth. Anthony, let's go on though. I want to discuss the New England Patriots a little bit. We'll get to N'Keal Harry in a second, but I'm seeing things that you have players like they want to ease Sony Michel in as easily as possible with his knee injury, which we have discussed way too much on the show. Then you get Damian Harris, the rookie running back, who has been looking good on passing downs now. Now, when I said that to Anthony off air, he immediately said he's not going to eat into James White's workload, which is true. I totally agree, wholeheartedly. But, man, if he's getting early down work, if he's catching on passing downs, and if they're really taking it easy with Sony Michel's knee, I would think, this just continues to further what we talked about on the last episode, Anthony, that really it's, depending on what format you're doing, it's James White, then Damian Harris and Sony Michel, or maybe if you're in a standard, Damian Harris, James White, Sony Michel. Sony Michel's looking like he's might be in some trouble here. Are you concerned yet?
I don't know if I'm concerned about Sony Michel. I think if he's healthy, he's going to be on a field, but that knee is going to be an issue, and the Patriots know what Sony Michel did for them during their stretch Super Bowl run. So if there's any evidence of his knee acting up, they might just taper him off a little bit early and save him for the second half or the postseason, which is a very Patriots thing to do, which is why I'm probably fading Sony Michel in most formats and either getting my hands on James White and then Damian Harris, whose ADP is even lower. But the rookie back I love. And that's Justice Hill. And we're going to have to find a bet Justice Hill versus Damian Harris at some point. I know Damian Harris is your guy. And and I like Damian, but Justice Hill is my guy.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Dial it back.
Do we already have a bet?
No, you're telling me we have to find one? You just found one, my friend. You don't have to find it. You don't have to look for it. You found it. You want to do a bet? What do you want to do? Justice Hill or Damian Harris?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. What do you got? Name it.
Justice Hill's going to outperform in half-point PPR scoring format.
Sounds to me like you guys are a couple of bookies.
Okay. Damian Harris, Mike.
Done. All right, Anthony. Done.
Damian Harris. I mean, Sony Michel. We degrade Sony Michel because of his knee, but he's still Sony Michel when he's healthy. You know what he can do. You have you have a James White who's going to catch passes. Yeah, Damian Harris is going to be around, but all Justice Hill has to do, all he has in front of him is a 29-year-old broken down Mark Ingram who couldn't do anything behind a Saints offensive line that was a top 5 unit.
Okay.
Justice Hill was probably going to own the Ravens backfield sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, let's pretend I'm doing you a favor, and I'll say let's make the bet.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. We'll put that on Twitter. We'll see how that goes. All right. Also, Patriots rookie, another rookie, N'Keal Harry. He's been working with the second-team offense behind Maurice Harris and Philip Dorsett. That was on Sunday. Anthony, we all know Edelman's a great guy to own in fantasy, as far as if you're in half point, especially full point. N'Keal Harry, are you still kind of lukewarm, see how it goes, or are you jumping on him?
Lukewarm, see how it goes.
Yeah, me too.
I want to see that the mental mistakes are corrected. Because the reports I'm seeing today is if the season started right now, Maurice Harris will be locked into a starting job.
Right.
This is a fringe roster player who the Patriots acquired early in the offseason. Maurice Harris played well before he got injured last year for the Washington Redskins, and he might be that type of Patriots player that they like.
Yeah. No, I could see it. All right. So there you go. Keep an eye on that. Next one, Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck had missed practice on Tuesday for the second time in 4 days. That would be with a calf injury. Now, this is dating back to minicamp. And the head coach today of the Indianapolis Colts, Frank Reich, had said that Andrew Luck is not ready to take the next step as far as his recovery is concerned. So anyway, like I was saying, Luck missed all of minicamp. Now he's missing the start of training camp. And he's not improving pain-wise. So what's our level of concern here now for Andrew Luck? I mean, for me right now, I believe he's still my number 2 quarterback. Are you worried or what?
No, they're going to take it easy. I'm not worried about Andrew Luck.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So we'll just mention that. Let's run through the rest of this stuff here. It's also being reported, by the way, Tennessee Titans, there was some word about their running back Derrick Henry being in a walking boot. Turns out it's just a lower leg injury. Nothing really to worry about. He's going to be okay. I'm still excited for him for fantasy. Anthony, are you okay with this news? Or
Derrick Henry?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that either.
Me too. Okay. Raiders Antonio Brown, by the way, who's going to be a bounce-back player in 2019, according to ESPN. We're still waiting to see where the hell he's going to bounce back from. He's been activated from the active list, what's the NFL list or NFI list?
Yeah.
So he's
already bouncing back.
Yeah, he's already bouncing back. He's already going. All right. One more nugget to discuss here. That being the Miami Dolphins. Anthony, I put this in the show doc because we discussed this on the show. We actually have a bet about who will start week 1. That being Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh Rosen. Head coach Brian Flores came out today and said that Ryan Fitzpatrick is leading the way as far as the quarterback competition. Anthony, I know, especially in one quarterback leagues, you're not drafting one of these quarterbacks in one quarterback league. I understand.
No, absolutely not.
2 quarterback league, if it's maybe 12 team, I mean, you're going to have to. Someone's going to have to. But I'll just put it this way. Are you worried at all about the bet? And I'm not bragging. I'm just asking from an NFL standpoint here. Do you think Rosen's going to break through, or do we think Ryan Fitzpatrick?
I mean, the wise thing would, for the Dolphins would be see what they have early. But, you know, if he's just not cutting it, then he's just not cutting it.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, and again, and we've probably said this before, but if anything with Ryan Fitzpatrick, He'll start the year hot. He'll eventually taper off. So there'll be some room for Rosen to get in there. So, I still think Rosen's going to play plenty this year. They're going to find out what they have in him before they go ahead and draft another quarterback next draft. But I still stand by my opinion that Fitzpatrick starts week 1, and this just kind of even helps me feel better about it. But that's going to do it for our show. Anthony, this was a fun show. A lot of banter back and forth.
It was.
Coors Lights being consumed, and some coffee and fierce grape Gatorade and whatever else the hell you had in front of you. Anthony, anything else to say to the fine audience before we ride off into the sunset?
Well, first, before we end, we have a thumbs down on YouTube. Surprise, surprise. If it's you, I know it's you.
Who, me or someone else?
Whoever it is. It's that. It's got to be the same person every time, but that's okay.
I think it's hilarious.
I'm happy we affect his or her life that bad.
Right. You're welcome.
But on a happier note, if you are listening right now in podcast format, especially you Apple Podcast users, please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show and why we are the best damn fantasy football podcast on the planet where fantasy meets reality. Because the more subscriptions, ratings, and reviews that we get, the more people we can reach. And in the end, we want to help each and every one of you win fantasy football championships, dominate your leagues, and absolutely positively crush the competition. We will maintain the culture of winning we've built here in the FF Faceoff for almost 3 years since our inception and over 211 episodes. Till next time, Mike, take us home.
Folks, it was a fun episode. We'll be back at you 2 more times this week. And again, we'll get that play draft going shortly, so keep your eyes on that. But thanks for listening. Stay thirsty, stay safe. Cheers.
Johnny got a toy golf set when he was 3, and from that day on, he was hooked. All he wanted to do was golf, golf, golf. He'd be on the links before school, after school. All he ever wanted was to go pro. And then, one day, when he was holding his grandson and thinking about his 12 handicap, Johnny realized it just might not happen for him. But you know what did happen for him? He switched to Geico and saved a bunch of money on car insurance. So that was good, and so was hanging out with his grandson.
Say Metro by T-Mobile got the best deal in wireless, and it's all for you, all for me. Just switch quickly, because Metro has 2 lines for $80 and 2 Samsung Galaxy J7 Star phones for free. Plus Amazon Prime included. That's the way wireless should be. Only at Metro.
Plus sales tax and activation fee. $50 plus rate plan required. Not valid for numbers currently on T-Mobile network or on Metro in past 90 days. Offer subject to change. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Amazon Prime has a $12.99 per month value. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.